Hey guys, what's happening? So, the general election's done, and it's basically the story of Star Wars. I'll come to that in a minute. So yeah, Labour didn't get the overall majority. They won't be the government moving forward. So why are Labour voters so optimistic? And now, of course, I can't speak for everyone, and I wouldn't dream of doing that. I want to say first and foremost, thanks very much to everyone who engaged on the last video. I thought some of the debate was absolutely fantastic in the comments, and by and large, people kept it clean, which is one thing I think that's the biggest thing that's come out of this election, is that people, and a younger generation of people, seem to be capable of talking about politics and expressing their views without basically resorting to name calling and calling people tits. Now, bear in mind, I called a few people tits and worse on my last video, but also bear in mind that I am no longer currently in that younger demographic, which makes me sad. Nevertheless, the reason why I'm upbeat is as follows, and it's not because, you know, ultimately because of the result, it's because of the way in which the result was achieved and where this leaves us in this country moving forward. The simple fact of the matter is, we're entering into a world, or I felt we were, and it looked like this from comments that I've seen from certain people, as though like left-wing thinking and left-wing politics were dead and buried. When I first started voting, which is 16 years now, which is also terrifying, I genuinely thought right-wing politics were done and dusted forever. I thought as a society, as a people, we'd move forward. I dream more of Star Trek, if I'm perfectly honest, where you've got to all get together as a planet if you want to look to the stars and move beyond and evolve, and that never seems possible in my mind in a right-wing way, because it always seems about isolationism. It seems about each their own, everyone doing their own little things in their own little pockets with their own self-serving interests. So it seemed to me like that was the way we were going through from the late 90s and into the early noughties. The things that were supposedly the core values of this country, things like the NHS, things like looking after one another, seem to be on the back burner, instead preferencing let's make loads of money, ha ha ha, rub our hands together with evil glee. And the thing about this is, whilst Jeremy Corbyn is not the Prime Minister right now, the reason why it is not a cartwheel down the street victory, but definitely a step in the right direction, is he was expected to get slaughtered. The reason why the Conservatives called a general election is because they thought he had no chance. And let's be honest as well, not just the Conservatives, people within the Labour Party thought, nah, his politics is dead and buried, because they had to think that way, because people who think the Tony Blair way, the Blairites, had been convinced that the only way that Labour could possibly get into power is to be more central, is to be more conservative. Would someone more central? I don't think. I think people are bored of the old new Labour, and what this is, it's a victory for those theories. When the left-wing ethos is supposedly dead and buried, Jeremy Corbyn, and it is Jeremy Corbyn, has galvanised the people behind it. He's resurrected these beliefs, and I think that's amazing. Is he perfect? No. No, absolutely not. Listen, Jeremy Corbyn is still a weedy vegetarian who doesn't know how to properly high-five. But remember all those criticisms that were coming out days ago? Look who he's associated himself with in the past. Look who in the past Jeremy Corbyn has associated. Look who the Conservatives now have to associate themselves with. The DUP. Now listen, I had no fucking idea of the DUP, where you didn't either, I'm willing to bet. Nobody did. It was the top search term on Google on the morning of the general election results. Let's put it this way. Climate change denying, gay rights opposing, weirdos who ultimately think that the world is 10,000 years old. Remember our little talk about looking at sides and looking who you're aligning yourself with and who's supporting who, and the question of, are we the baddies?
Are we the baddies?
Yeah, they're the baddies. They are the baddies. If you genuinely believe that two people who love each other are not allowed to be with each other because they happen to be of the same gender, you're a fucking baddie. I'm telling you that right now. Now listen, of course, as with anything, these are very nuanced times, and politics are far too nuanced for me to go into every single point, and I will accept that it's going to be an interesting, and listen, it could possibly be a very difficult and very dark time ahead in the short term for this country. Brexit negotiations looming. Theresa May whilst I'm happy to have it be destabilised because I believe that they should not be in power, look, it potentially weakens the position with regards to Brexit negotiations. But here's the thing. That's not Jeremy Corbyn's fault. That's not Labour voters' fault. That's the fault of the Conservatives, because they went into a general election based almost entirely on hubris. They felt, again, as mentioned, that they were going to wipe the floor with the Labour Party. They were going to finally kill off the Labour Party. They were going to kill off Jeremy Corbyn. No young voters would get out and vote, and they just have a clear path to do whatever they want to do in those negotiations. Look, I'm prepared to say I've got no idea what that will genuinely mean. We're going to have to watch, and we're going to have to cross our fingers and hope that it doesn't leave the country in too damaged a position. So why am I upbeat? Well, I'm an upbeat kind of guy, as most people will know by this point. But for me, it's about what was mobilised during this general election. For me, again, it's Star Wars. Why is it like Star Wars? Nothing like Star Wars. Where are the fucking lightsabers? No, in that, what I mean is this. A ragtag, youthful bunch of upstarts who don't believe that the way things are being done is the right way to do things, has risen up and started to take back their right to control their own futures. And here's the thing, I'm not suggesting that every single person between the age of 18 and 25 went out and voted Labour, because clearly they didn't. And ultimately, I kind of don't care in that regard. Again, I keep coming back to this. I am not a dyed-in-the-wool Labour fan by any stretch of the imagination. What we need to see is people who are going to be dead inside 20 years to stop having such a definitive impact on things that are going to have a 40, 50, 60-year impact going forward for the country. A lot of the people who voted for Brexit are going to be fucking dead by the time the true realities of Brexit hits. What I'm pleased with is that a new generation of people are politically motivated, politically minded, and once you're activated in that regard, listen, choose to use your vote how you wish to use it. But it's great to see that people are actually getting off their arses and using it for the first time in a long time. It's about putting our future back in our own hands. Ask Americans what it's like to not have a national health service, because that's the way the Conservatives are taking it. There's a new generation who step up and say, look, tuition fees can fuck off. Cutting the NHS can fuck off. Having important parts of our country owned by big businesses who don't give a fuck about us can fuck off. So Star Wars. Why Star Wars? This general election is not the end, very much the beginning. Is it the outright victory for the rebels, for the rebellion, for the people? No, it's not. Of course it's not. And in that regard, it's very much a new hope. People are reinvigorated. They've got a symbolic victory under the belt, and we're looking forward with hope and optimism to the future and thinking they're not unbeatable. If Labour had been crushed, the people who rose up, who tried to rise up, would, oh God, well, what was the point? But no, this will light a fire in people's bellies and think, wow, what can we do if a general election's not being called 7 weeks beforehand? What can we do if we all get behind it and we all throw our all into overthrowing them this time around? Listen, yeah, maybe we've got Empire Strikes Back to go through yet. No! But I genuinely believe we're on the march to Return of the Jedi. Yeah, listen, nobody's dancing in jungles with teddy bears just yet. You know, unless you dropped a load of acid at the Isle of Wight festival. Things might have to get a little bit worse in order for them to get better. But I do genuinely, and it is ultimately just my opinion, think that things will get better for this country, because at the heart of it, it's about caring for us, it's about caring for ourselves. Now that's back on the agenda, now that's back at the forefront of people's minds, is absolutely incredible. Best of all, Obi-Wan didn't even have to die this time. Clarify, I think that makes Theresa May the Emperor. Bit of hubris, yeah, I like that. Calling the general elections like the equivalent of leaving that port open for to the reactor core. I guess it might mean Boris is going to be Jabba. Anyway, that's just my thought on what's happened at the moment. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, it is just my opinion for what it's worth. Cheers. It's defo Jabba.